found out what it takes to get rid of the crowds at DIA, and there are photos to prove it. Homeowners on all sides of the fence are invested in the debate over short-term rentals. Some are trying to protect how they make a living. Others just want to afford a home in Denver. Mesa County Republicans say they would even defend a Democrat for what they're calling an unfortunate mistake.
We do expect perfection out of people, and I think, again, it's unreasonable.
That mistake, more than 500 ballots that were never counted. We're paying attention to your questions, and more importantly, politics guy Marshall Zellinger is, and delivers a truth test about state public option political ads. Every single word in the laws that govern our city matters. And when those words change, it can impact a lot of people. Like right now, when the city of Denver is proposing changing the definition of who can rent out their homes on a short-term basis. A change like that, well, it invites a lot of debate. Here's Mark Salinger.
In an industry based around inviting strangers into our homes, there's concern over who might actually be allowed to do that.
It might push hosts out that are good hosts and compliant hosts from not being able to host.
Let's start with who is allowed to host. The city of Denver makes it clear that only homes considered to be primary residences are allowed to be rented out on websites like Airbnb and VRBO. Now they're proposing making some changes to the definition of what a primary residence is. Ask the city.
We have to adapt with the industry.
And they'll tell you by adding more ways to prove a primary residence, they can crack down on rentals that cause disturbances and raise property values.
Doesn't mean all short-term rentals are bad. We just want to make sure and have protections in place for those instances where there are irresponsible short-term renters.
Talk to others in the rental industry, and they'll say the changes unfairly limit who can rent out their homes.
I don't think we're getting anywhere with this style of enforcement. And our concern is that this new language is only going to further empower the city to govern with an enforcement mentality.
Dana Lubner is a member of Mile High Hosts, a short-term rental advocacy group in Denver. She says the industry can regulate itself and points to events like this recent one that promoted responsible hosting.
We feel that there is no need to further enforcement, but find a solution-based approach that would help educate hosts and relieve any sort of issues that neighbors have had with problematic properties.
Now it'll be up to City Council to decide which side is right. And the city says it will make their initial proposal to City Council in the next couple of weeks. So what exactly could be changed? The city is proposing changing the definition of a primary residence, what documents can be used to prove that, and their standards for allowing or denying an application. Anusha, people in the industry worry that people who maybe go away for a long period of time to travel but rely on these industries to rent out their homes and make a little bit of money, they worry that they could lose their license if this happens.
Yeah, we were just talking about, this is a popular industry that a lot of people are relying on right now.
Relying on both of when they come visit Denver to stay in one of these Airbnbs or VRBOs, or as a supplemental income to rent these out. So it affects a lot of people.
All right, thank you for that. Appreciate it, Mark. When we say we listen to you here on Next, we really mean it. We've heard from Mark, Glenn, Rose, Daryl, among lots of other people, asking for a truth test of the political ads talking about a state public option. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger takes his bitmoji out of hibernation to answer your questions.
Healthcare costs are too high.
Can I just stop the truth test here and say, yes, they are. You've asked for a truth test of these political ads from Colorado's healthcare future.
The state government option would put politicians in control of our healthcare.
The state option it talks about is a bill that has not even been introduced yet at the state capitol. So the claims in the ad are based on speculation. A state public option would provide a new insurance option for the 7% of people in Colorado who get their insurance through the individual market. Democratic Representative Dylan Roberts will sponsor the yet-to-be-introduced bill. He told me that for people on the public option, the state would limit how much hospitals could be reimbursed.
The state government option would shift $1.5 billion in higher healthcare costs to the millions of Coloradans with employer-provided coverage.
Because the bill is not introduced yet, we don't know. But we can dig into where the statistic comes from. In October, the vice president of the Colorado Health Association, which represents hospitals, wrote a letter to the state insurance commissioner saying a public health option would cut $1.5 billion over 5 years to healthcare providers. So if a public option reduced what a hospital could be reimbursed and the hospital wanted to make up the missing money, they could choose to charge more to people with employer-provided coverage.
And 8,300 jobs would be lost.
The ad is funded by Colorado's healthcare Healthcare Future, which is part of a national group that receives money from insurance companies and hospitals nationwide. I know this ad contains other statistics, but for a good truth test, it's better to wait until the bill it references is introduced. For Next, I'm Marshall Zellinger.
Mayor Michael Hancock's office wants the Trump administration to check the scoreboard. Yesterday, a federal appeals court ruled that the president can withhold law enforcement grants to 4 states and so-called sanctuary cities to cooperate with U.S. immigration enforcement. Denver is considered one of those cities. Hancock's office calls that decision dangerous, even though it doesn't impact the city just yet. They did say that they have already beaten the Trump administration in court over this issue before, and also said if they have to, they'll do it again. Well, let's go ahead and start this story with the fact that there are no confirmed cases of coronavirus in Colorado right now. But it turns out that one of the first drills that welcomed the governor into office was to prepare for a similar situation.
One of the very first drills that I went through when I was elected governor was we did a drill process around a contagion, obviously unnamed, but it could have been any illness, about how we would move somebody from the airport, how we would isolate them in treatment to prevent it from catching on.
So health officials in Colorado are really just trying to balance educating people about this virus, but don't want anyone to panic. The governor did say that acting quickly would be critical if a case does pop up, but that right now it's just important to keep washing your hands, covering your coughs, obviously not just for coronavirus, but other things like the flu, which has killed at least 3 Coloradans this year, compared to 0 deaths and 0 cases of people testing positive in Colorado for the coronavirus. For a while now, some experts have felt like they've been not invited to the legalizing hemp party because of the feds. They wanted in, even though this process has just been completely confusing for more than a year now. These experts were particularly miffed about this whole thing because Colorado got a jump start on growing hemp and is now the #1 producer in the country. But when the Farm Bill legalized hemp that was late in 2018, it required labs to be certified by the DEA before testing to make sure that hemp was actually hemp and not marijuana. That is until yesterday, when the feds decided they needed to put those rules off until next year because they realized it was leaving too many labs out.
Important part of bringing in Colorado is, we have years of data and expertise. We should get these, all the hemp tested for safety, but the feds should also use Colorado. We have so much experience.
The State Department of Agriculture said that they can now start authorizing more labs to test hemp this year with those rule changes. After finding 500 ballots from last year's election uncounted in Mesa County, you can understand why the Republican clerk and recorder is being scrutinized. Well, now the Mesa County Republican Party is defending her and telling us that they would do the same if she was a Democrat. Clerk and recorder Tina Peters has been catching some grief this month after her office found 574 ballots that were never counted. They were from the November 2019 election, found in a ballot box outside the county elections office last week. Well, Monday, the chair of the Mesa County Republican Party sent out a letter in support of her. It included a line about the mistake appearing, quote, quite trivial when compared against the massive deficiencies and problems with other state voting systems. Not counting 574 votes is trivial?
We didn't say it was trivial. We think it, compared to other things that are going on in our area, that it is not as important. Did not affect any of the races, would not affect any of the races. And the fact, again, that she was up front, found them and admitted to it, I think, and she's going to do the corrections. So, obviously voting is very important to us, and it's crucial.
So Kevin McCarney and his fellow Mesa County Republicans say that while this was an unfortunate mistake that should never have happened, humans make mistakes, and that it would have been different if it had actually impacted any races. So we asked if they would have been so kind to a Democrat.
We would probably do the same thing. I'm fairly fair when it comes to dealing with mistakes. There are no perfect people in the world. And it's unfortunate, of course, when anything like this happens in our county.
We talked with the Colorado Secretary of State's office today. They've had someone in Mesa County for the last 4 days checking its voting processes. They say they are confident the county will be able to hold a proper primary election next week. An Aurora staple for 25 years thought it had at least another 25.
My reaction was surprise and shock and just feeling sick about it.
The landlord felt differently. DIA on Y2K for the 25th anniversary of Denver's airport opening. We take a stroll down memory lane to when the people thought it was the end times. And when we're talking about empty airports, we feel like it's our obligation to show you this guy rolling your way next. Today's next question was texted to us from a viewer named Mitch. He's a retired teacher in Adams County, and he's curious about why Colorado doesn't have a lottery solely to fund education.
Well, Mitch, it's definitely a numbers game that was set for the lottery proceeds fund. Half of it is designated for Great Outdoors Colorado. 40% goes to the Conservation Trust Fund and then 10% to Colorado Parks and Wildlife. So any money beyond that annual cap of $35 million then goes towards the BEST Fund. That's a construction fund Colorado schools can apply for through grants. Last year, it got more than $14 million in proceeds from lottery sales. So, while it's not completely dedicated to schools, it definitely still does contribute.
And speaking of the lottery, Anusha, we have won the weather lottery heading into the weekend. Sunshine and warmer temperatures, a lot of snow melt. And while some of you are dealing with a little bit of wind out there, the winds will decrease this evening after a day with highs near 50 in the city. As a matter of fact, sometimes it's okay to be average. That's where our high was this afternoon. Still dealing with some pretty gusty winds in areas like Black Hawk and Loveland Pass and up over the northern plains. The Denver area is seeing calmer winds here. And I think after sunset, which is now, the winds will continue to decrease. 44 at DIA, wind chill 36, and winds are lighter there. The low pressure area pulling into the Midwest allows for high pressure to settle in. That's going to keep the storm track north and bring in some warm air from the southwest, along with a bit of high cloud cover. The northwest flows brought in a few snow showers across the North Platte area and wind advisories up in Wyoming. But for the most part, high pressure means a warming and drying trend between now and Sunday afternoon, and a wind shift will allow temperatures to soar above average. Fair skies, windy at times, cool, our low 25. Tomorrow with sunshine, a quick warm up. We'll be close to 60 tomorrow. Not sure we'll get there on Friday afternoon, but it is Friday. It's Saturday. That's the warmest day of the extended period ahead of the next storm and next chance for snow. Not an overly strong or cold storm, but there is that chance of snow showers late Sunday into Monday, clearing on Tuesday. And really just a beautiful view from the Red Rocks area, Anusha, earlier in the week.
All right. Thank you for that, Kathy. Appreciate it. This week, Denver International Airport is celebrating 25 years of existence. And with the way we know the airport these days, it's pretty hard to imagine it's so empty that it feels eerie. Well, you don't really have to wonder anymore, because Bob sent us these photos of DIA looking like a ghost town. He says he spent 5 years working at DIA as an IT guy, says that he was in the airport on the eve of the millennium as it was rolling over into the year 2000. Only a handful of people were inside at the time. Terminals were mostly empty because of the Y2K panic. There were concerns that all of the computers responsible for things like security would malfunction as the clocks turned over, and that kept a lot of people from flying. Okay, so you know how this story ends, right? The Y2K panic turned out to be a whole bunch of nothing. We were there the morning of January 1st as the first flights of the new millennium took off, and DIA quickly went back to being crowded. So while a nearly empty DIA is cool, a nearly empty Stapleton Airport is about 100 times better. That's because we found this old footage of a guy rollerblading through the old airport when it closed down. It's just him, as you can see, besides a few employees here and there. And seriously, this is about as 90s as it gets, from the shirt to the haircut to some very fashionable wrist and knee pads. Do you happen to know who this person is? Because we would love to talk to him. If you do, you should email us at next@9news.com or use the hashtag HeyNext.
He watched as people came to pick through pieces of his restaurant that's been around for 25 years.
We're going to miss all the people that were here.
But stuff is just stuff, and the owner of the Bent Noodle bids farewell next.
McCollum thought that he had decades left to feed people in Aurora. His restaurant, the Bent Noodle, has been around for 25 years. But then a letter came in January, and that letter cut that time short. Today, he was reflecting on all the people who made his restaurant possible while watching the competition pick through his stuff.
Hello, you finding everything okay?
All the equipment and furnishings of the restaurant are getting sold.
And then 15 is going to be these 3 tables. These are the larger plates.
It's all going to be gone here by tomorrow night. Sunday was our last day. We had to close, get it ready to sell all the equipment in the auctions today.
Is that okay? You bid on it? Cool.
Okay, I'll carry these out. My name's Steve McCullum, and my wife and I were the operators of the Bent Noodle. Is the beer going with the beer cooler? We had not very much notice that we were going to close. We tried to find another location, weren't able to in the short period of time that we had.
We got little chillers, pourers, coffee pots, plastic cups.
The stuff is just stuff. I don't have any emotional attachment to the equipment. This is one of our cooks, that's customer. It's the people and the staff that we're going to miss the most. It's the customers who've been regulars for years. It's the staff that we've worked with. Some of our staff had been here for the whole 25 years. So many people have had great events here, great dinners here. People have gotten engaged here. We've grown a fond attachment to all the people that have been associated with the Bent Noodle, and we're going to miss them.
A program that encourages snitching, but if it means getting to work faster, that's okay, right? That and your feedback next. Anyone who wants to vent about traffic because of super long freight trains have a new tool to fight back. That is, if you're comfortable with snitching. I mean, you know the age-old saying, snitches get to where you need to go faster, right? Obviously. The Federal Railroad Administration rolled out a new online portal. It allows you to mark down the exact location of the crossing where the delay happened, why you think it happened, and then, of course, how long you were stuck. So you can find this website on your desktop, but let's be real, a lot of you are probably going to use your phone, which brings us to our next point. Do not get caught texting while driving. Just be safe about this whole thing. The FRA set up the portal back in December, and the agency is hoping it's going to help them track these issues better across the country and then find out where the worst problem areas are. And today I wanted to give a thanks to Gerard for writing in, saying a thank you to us for doing the truth test today. We are just happy that we were able to answer one of your questions. Keep them coming our way. We'll see you next time.